So why am I doing this? I'm starting this podcast because we all have a story and finances play a part in our struggles and successes. If we can learn from the many mistakes many others have made, we can make sure that more of us are successful. Like the quote says, to increase the chances of success, we must increase our failure rate. To be honest, I failed a ton. I will bring people from all walks of life, but mostly service members. If you have a story you would like to share, do not hesitate to reach out. From the go, like and subscribe to this podcast so many others can benefit. All right, how's it going? Today on the Financial Enabler podcast, we have John Herman, who was my boss twice in the Marine Corps, Silver Star recipient. I'm sure we'll dabble into that just a little bit. And honestly, a guy that I could say saved my life. We're going to give you guys a story. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Is this your first podcast or have you done others?
Yeah, no, this is the first one, actually.
Oh, man, maybe I can get you in a string of podcasts because, I mean, for our profession, and I'll say this with, out of respect too, right? Like, you're one of the guys that left a huge mark on the community, and we all know that. And it's, and I'll say this, and I'm gonna put it publicly. So if any EOD techs hear this, know that I'm calling all you guys out. You're the first EOD tech in the podcast. First Marine EOD tech in the podcast.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I've written to, and for that matter, it's not that because I waited. I've reached out to a bunch of them and I'm like, guys, can you guys please get on, tell your story? Like, I'm not asking you to go be a SEAL and write a book and beat your chest, but I'm asking you to share your story. And so when you said, yeah, I was super pumped. And for that matter, I think Joey Bowden is going to get on next week. Fun, just pure coincidences,
Yeah, nice.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background in the Marine Corps before you got out? Because I know you retired as a captain, correct?
I did, yes. I retired as a captain in 2020.
Awesome. So what was your Marine Corps career like?
So as we were discussing a little bit earlier, we all started on some yellow footprints somewhere, right? So I did back in '96 as an infantry guy. Funny story is I remember sitting in the recruiter's office and he said, "What do you want to do in the Marine Corps?" And I said, "I want to be a Marine." He said, "Yeah, but what job do you want to do in the Marine Corps?" I don't know, Marine. And he's like, "I got a job for you. You're going to be great at it."
It was perfect.
0331, there we go. And I did that for about 6.5 years or so until I made a lap move to UD. Went off to UD school, and that was the end of it.
Nice. What got you? What attracted you to go be an EOD tech?
So, funny story. I was in. Let me see. I think it was Golf Company 2-3 is who I was with, and and we were in Fuji, and we were there for throughout the winter, and it was a long weekend, and everybody was going to get in 72, 3 days off to head out to Tokyo or wherever. And first sergeant comes in and he said, "Hey, I need a couple of bodies for a working party over the weekend." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, I know where this is going, And he said, "Here's the thing: if you volunteer, then you'll still get your 72, but you'll get the day off that everybody else has to come back." So I think it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So mine was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So I got an additional day off out in town without all of the masses with me. So I thought, all right, I'll go do that. And it turns out the working party was to go walk around the impact areas and help EOD guys go pick up, declared mortars or whatnot, mortar fins, things of that nature. And I was like, "Well, this is the greatest job in the world. You guys are walking around, calling each other by their first name, and at the end of the day, I get to blow something up."
Nice.
Like, well, how do I do this? How do I do this? Point me in the direction, and came back Okinawa after that deployment and lap moved, and here we are.
Nice. Well, that's awesome, and I'm kind of glad that I don't want to dive in too deep. So you went to EOD. Did you spend most of your time in MARSOC as a enlisted an officer, or what did you do before MARSOC?
It was so before MARSOC, I graduated in January of 2003 from UD school, and then fast forward a week or two, got on an airplane to Kuwait, was there for the breach. And I remember sitting on the hood of my Hummer thinking, man, I hope I paid enough attention in air, because it was all of this stuff. I'm thinking, man, this is nuts. Careful what you wish for, right?
Wow.
Came back off of that that particular deployment. I think it was the midsummer of 03.
Wow.
And they were asking for volunteers to go work for a force recon. Man, I'll go do that. So we came back that summer, immediately went over to what was called the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit. Went to work for a force platoon there, turned around and spent about 10 months in Iraq from 04 to 05. Being very busy, quite busy, if you will.
Yeah.
And then I came back from that, and then decided, hey, I'd like to do something more with my life. So ended up going over to MARSOC.
That's awesome. And man, I didn't know that. So it's funny because I'm trying to picture like the people that you were probably with around those times. Like I know you were with Nick and Sahaki. Probably maybe not with them at the push, but same country, doing the same job, or same task. And your time in MARSOC was great. That's where you got a silver star, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And we're not going to dive into that one too deep, but you if you go find his, I'm sure you can find the citation somewhere. It's out there. What did you get from because your time with MARSOC was pretty good. What would you say is a very fond memory of your time in MARSOC?
People, hands down.
People.
The people. I mean, you name it. You didn't matter if it was CSO, one of the operators, or if it was somebody that you had to work alongside with, maybe from a support, point of view or not. Everybody wanted to be there. Everybody was doing the best that they could to try to accomplish the mission, whether that was in some form of support or some form of, action or whatever the case might be. Everybody wanted to be there, from my perspective. And it was just an absolute joy to be surrounded by people like that. There was a book years ago. It's still out. It was about the Black Hawk Down. Michael Durant was the guy who wrote it. The name of the book is called, I believe, In the Company of Heroes. I remember right.
Yeah.
And if you've not read it, it's a fantastic book. But that particular title always resonated with me when I was in MARSOC, and I always felt as I was within the company of heroes across the board. Anybody out there could just crush it on a daily basis, and I enjoyed being around them.
Yeah. No, and that's it. I have that very similar feeling, right? And I remember, especially in that building where we were at first, that you just walked in and you knew, like, these dudes not only were incredible husbands and fathers, they're like, that at any given moment, these guys were going to go crush it. And it was impressive. And as a matter of fact, pure coincidence, my first ops chief in my team just moved to Albuquerque. I don't know if you remember Dick Balls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Dick Balls just moved here. His wife is from here, so I'm pretty pumped. So it's really cool to see that. And so to bring it all that, so you spent your time in MARSOC and then you became an officer, and that's where we met. You were at First Company, right?
I was, yeah. I left MARSOC to become a warrant officer, and then went from there back to First DoD Company, and then Captain. Yes.
So we met, and I don't know if you remember this, but so we came with Wilkins's from Hawaii, all the Hawaii dudes, and I remember Ed and I showing up to Musakela to replace Zambone, and then here we are, surprised we work for John Herman now, right? And Jones,
yes.
Right? Which is super small. Yeah. What do you remember anything about that? Oh, I'm sure you do. But what do you remember of that time, being now an officer in a deployment with conventional forces? Was it a big change? Was it easy to get into that groove?
There's always a little bit of dealing with change. There's that uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
So in dealing with that uncertainty, I felt at my time, growing up on the enlisted side within the Marine Corps, as far as being in the infantry, being an EOD guy, and then now being thrust into this position, I felt that it prepared me quite well, to deal with the uncertainty, to deal with the fact that you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's huge. And I'll never forget that deployment. I remember I attribute that deployment, which making me, I mean, for that matter, that deployment made me a man. That's kind of how I see that, right? Like, I remember joking, because I had in my team, we had Jimmy Becker and Ed, and I'll never forget just, I remember my first patrol, and I joked to this day that it felt like I was holding my rifle upside down because I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just following these guys, and then I fall, and I, cut my finger, and I was like, obviously the new kid is getting hurt. But from there, like, Jimmy was the one that pushed me to get fit, and Ed challenged me to be a great EOD tech. And fast forward, that led me to whenever Lathrop put an email out, which E6s wanted to come to MARSOC. I was like, I'll do it, and I took the leap, and it worked out, and it was an incredible experience to go to MARSOC, and by fortune, end up working for you all over again.
Right.
And I wanted, we spoke about this. So I want to talk a little about finance, but I don't think I need to talk about this because I spoke about it in Issa, and not Issa's, who was it? That other guy's podcast with Dan Knoll. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about it because to me, it's important to say that we've dealt with it, right? And it happens. Right. So what do you, and for the audience, if you guys go to these other podcasts, I've spoken about the time that I considered committing suicide. Right. I was drunk, and I learned a lot from that experience. What do you remember of that night from because I remember I called Wilkins first, and then he called you. What do you recall of that night? Because it was probably very late.
Yeah, no, it was late. But I'll tell you, I think the thing that stands out in my mind the most about that particular evening was a sense of duty. Like, this is something I have to do. I mean, you could have been somebody that I'd never met before.
Yeah.
If an individual had called me and said, "Hey, I need some help with Bob Smith," or whatever the case might be, it's a no-brainer. And then as we kind of walked through that evening, verbally, so
yeah,
it was one of those where, he would do this for me in a heartbeat. So I'm going to go brew a cup of coffee, and I'm going to sit down, and we're just going to chat and do whatever we've got to do for as long as it takes. Makes no difference. This is what we do to help each other out. This is what we do as brothers, and
yeah.
And I know that you would do the same for me if I was ever in a situation like that. You'd do the same for anyone.
Yeah, for sure. And as I remember it, I'll never forget, and I've said it plenty of times. Like, I remember I was outside of a buddy of mine. He's a dog handler, and I was holding this loaded gun after spending the entire day with Brandfast, actually.
Yeah.
And I remember called Ronnie, and then he called you, and I was like, I remember you both asking me, it's like, are you going to be okay? And I remember that at that point, my sense was that now, if I do it, I'm lying to you guys. And if I do it, maybe that's some of that. There's a duty to my leadership and to the organization. And it was almost beyond me, because at that point I wasn't thinking about me, right? And I was like, I promise I'm not going to do this. And I went inside, went to sleep, and it was a done deal, which in a way, I'll never forget that that's what led me to talk to Wroblewski, because, situations happen. Some people wanted me out, which right, wrong, or indifferent, right? That was what that person wanted. And Wroblewski was like, no, give me a minute. Because I was in the middle of that really busy course. And talking to Wroblewski, it really hit me. And that's kind of where I started coming to realization that a lot of people have these demons. And it takes a lot of, and a point of pride of mine is, takes a lot of maturity to deal with it. Right? Because
yeah, it absolutely does, yes.
Yeah. And we even had it on that deployment. when we got back from Afghanistan, we had that guy. I don't recall his name. I know he was in Lepping's team that committed suicide, and it's like, and there's plenty, right? So, and to that, maybe put an end to this is like, people need to talk about it, right? And it's, and I'll say one of the things, it was never held against me. I don't even remember ever the command mentioning it. At least nobody spoke to me about it after I spoke to Wroblewski, and it felt that you guys at that point had to trust me, and I was like, I'm gonna do it, right? Which also ended up meaning after that I deployed right after I got back, and you guys were like, all right, this guy's going and doing the thing all alone. Right. So it's really cool that there was that trust. Have you dealt with that with other people?
Yeah, I would say maybe not directly, not as one-on-one as say you and I were, but you're absolutely correct. There's a stigma about having an ability or inability to talk about mental health and things along those lines. The command was always 100% on board with getting the folks, the various operators, whatever they needed as far as support. And if somebody needs to take a knee, for lack of better terms, yeah, got it. They were always there to help out. And that was something that I always held in extremely high regard. The ability for folks, to put their hand in the air and say, I have a problem, I have a concern, I have a question, I need some help. There's a stigma around it. There probably always has been, at least since I've, kind of been an adult anyway. And I'll tell you that having the guts, that sense of self-worth, knowing that, hey, I need to ask for some help here. Who can I turn to? There's plenty of organizations out there that are there to offer help or whatnot, but I think really the onus is on the individual. If you don't ask for the help, then nobody's going to be able to. So.
Yeah. That's it's so true. And I'll tell you the story is like, we dealt with this kid in Okinawa who asked for help, sought the help. The EOD command did everything to get him the help. The battalion did it, but then the Navy slow rolled, and the kid ended up committing suicide in the barracks. And it's like, man, like, for once the system was trying to make it happen, and the Marine Corps did everything right. And it was shocking, and I'll never forget the Master Guns coming back, and he's like, guys, the battalion did everything right. This unfortunately was the Navy, and we were all like, wow, we did not expect that, right? Which is it's so tough, right? There's so many failure points, especially when you're overseas. But I'm glad we spoke about that, because I want to put it out to the audience, right? Since I have this platform that speak about it, reach out to people. There's hundreds and hundreds of people that, and I don't think you would never want that phone call, but at the same time, you'd rather get that phone call than get the bad news the next day.
Absolutely. It's one of those where, you hope you never have to answer the phone in that particular situation. But at the same time, you want to be the one there who answers the phone if it does happen. It's kind of like, the backbone, if you will,
Yeah.
If it rings, you better be there to pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tried, it's good that we have that mindset, right? And, I'm sure he doesn't mind I do this, but like Kevin, to this day, like, he's dealt with a few of those cases. And to this day, if I text him the other day, have you met Zane DeValoy?
I'm maybe positive.
Yeah. So I texted Kevin. I was hanging out with Zane, and I texted him at like 2:00 in the morning, Pacific time. And Kevin wakes up, is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. I was just excited to text you," like, because he's been on that the negative side of it. So,
right.
Which again, Kevin is always there to answer for those calls. But moving past the Marine Corps, because I try to treat the Marine Corps as this incredible time in our adult life, but realistically, it's just a passerby. What have you done post the Marine Corps? And if it's been nothing, that's awesome, because I know that a lot of us dream of that.
No, I retired in 20. Took a job doing some contract work for a little while. Moved back to Yuma, and worked here for a little bit up at the Yuma Proving Grounds for a little while. And now I'm just kind of hanging out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any future projects? Anything? Is there anything in John's bucket list of career-wise or goals?
Let's see. My bucket list. One day, I'd like to, as we all would, find ourselves in a situation where, I can just go fishing the rest of my life.
Okay.
Or not.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah. That's it. And you were, I like asking, and I think I texted you about it already. Are you a lure fisherman or a fly fisherman?
My father was a big fly fisherman. That was his thing. That was his happy place, if you want to call it that. Yeah. I never really got into it. I've done it a couple of times. I went fly fishing actually a couple of years back up in Park City, Utah.
Okay.
And, had a phenomenal time. It was great. I don't know that I've got the patience, and maybe that would be good for me to work on that, to learn to do that.
Yeah. I actually learned to fly fish here in New Mexico, and I have fallen in love with it. And it's crazy. I love saying the stories. Like, I went from skydiver to fly fishing, and people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, it's for me and my brain is the same, because it's so difficult.
Yes.
Right. And to me, that's like, I need something that is so demanding that when I'm in the river, I have to think I need to catch fish. Right. And
sure.
It consumes me. Right. And I think that we all have to find the things that work.
Wow.
Yeah. So now to finances, because I like diving into this. Where were you raised?
I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Great place to be raised at. I love Arizona. It's so great. How was your upbringing? Whatever you're open to share, any phrases that come to mind, and I always think of, like, it's hard to earn money, or the money's the root of all evil, or anything that came to mind. Any markers financially early on in your life?
Yeah, two actually. One was pay yourself first. When you get a job and you have, bills, whether it's insurance, electricity, whatever the case might be. Everybody's got utilities and whatever else, right? Pay yourself first. So if you got a paycheck for $100, and maybe you put $2 to yourself first in the savings account, and then the rest of it goes to insurance or bills or whatever the case might be. So pay yourself first.
Okay.
And the other one was live within your means.
Okay. And do you feel that did you listen to your parents while you were in the Marine Corps, or you broke out of these?
Not initially, I can tell you that. Not absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. I was. Well, I can tell you. I remember. I had a meal card. Lived in the barracks, have a meal card, so you're going to get fed.
Mm-hmm.
You got a place to stay.
Yeah.
You're not going to get rain on your head. Don't let you in the field. Obviously, then that's different. But you had a place to stay. You had a place to go get chow. So everything was taken care of, right? I didn't have a car. There was nothing. I had nothing to spend my money on. So, every once in a while, I'd end up living like a rock star, even though I wasn't.
Yeah, I get that. And you were in Hawaii, so plenty of ways to live like rock star.
Sure, yeah, at least that's what they say.
Yeah.
I wouldn't personally,
No. It's all second and third hand, right? Yeah. So with that, and I like asking this question because it says a lot of our what we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel that you maxed out, whether it's the hazardous duty pay that we got, the per diem, any bonuses? Did you maximize it, or did you feel that you blasted it? Or sorry, allocated incorrectly?
Yes, allocated incorrectly. I'll tell you that I don't know that there was ever a time where I felt like I was just like hemorrhaging money. If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
I did the best I could to try to maintain any additional streams of income. Whether that was putting it towards a savings account or a college fund or maybe paying off some debt. Which is always good to do if you got the ability to pay off debt.
Yeah.
You've got there's sometimes you pay for years and years and years and years on a credit card, right? And never really get it down to a manageable or a $0 amount, right? So having oftentimes the ability to negate that and just make it go away, can sometimes be advantageous as well, especially if you look at it in the long run. You're going to spend, people get wrapped around of making that minimum payment on I'll use a credit card, for example. If it's, $100 a month is the minimum payment. Well, it's just going to stay that way. And maybe it's going to increase because those interest rates are going to go up and you're going to increase, the finance, the interest rate, the dollar's going to roll over. And so pretty soon your minimum amount will have to increase as well. And you'll just be paying on that for the rest of your life. You're not, try to be a good steward of your finances.
Yeah, which many people aren't. Do you have any memories of, I'm not saying to dime them out, but like any markers of other Marines doing things that you do not, were not advantageous to themselves financially that left a mark? Do you have any stories like that?
I would say the closest thing to that, I was in Hawaii, actually. I was stationed in Hawaii, and there was a big raffle, MCCS or somebody, and it might not even have been on the base. It may have been off base somewhere, but there was a big raffle, and one of the prizes was a Lamborghini. Like, no kidding, a Lamborghini car.
Wow.
No kidding. Model, I don't recall off the top of my head, but what mattered to Lamborghini, right?
Yeah.
Right. And this Lance Corporal won it.
No way.
Yeah, this Lance Corporal won it, and I was walking across this field in between these barracks one time, just down from where the commissary was, and I saw this Lamborghini parked there in this parking lot, and I was like, "Oh my God, that must be like a challenge or something to park that, right?" I didn't know. And, this Lance Corporal gets out, this E3 gets out, and I thought to myself, "My God, how does he afford the insurance on that?" And granted, he got that, but he's got to get license and registration, which has got to be through the roof, especially in Hawaii on something like that. But then insurance, just straight up insurance, is outrageous. And I thought, now, how does this kid afford that? I was a sergeant at the time, and I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah, that's crazy. I would have sold it, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah, right. Me too. I'd have sold it in a truck.
Yeah, yeah, definitely way more practical. Now, with now that, how did it feel to, or maybe not feel, but the transition from enlisted to warrant officer to captain? Do you see any trends in financial within those demographics?
I would say that as you, I don't know that you can really tie that to a pay rate, because I think that that's really more along the lines tied to age and maybe maturity level.
Right.
So as I progressed through the ranks, obviously I'm getting older every year, getting more mature every year. And you find yourself having conversations kind of like we are right now with other individuals. Regardless of pay grade, you notice that there's a little bit of a different mindset, a different perspective, if you will, on finances and what the good idea or what's not necessarily a good idea.
Yeah, I see that a lot too, and part of my my now is that I see that a lot of which, based on your upbringing, I highly doubt it is the case. A lot of our senior guys did not put enough thought into what are they doing financially post-military, and now they're trying to catch up. Have you seen anything like that? Have you, or maybe was that your experience, or do you feel that you did enough to set you up? I mean, you're not working now, so you must have done enough.
So I'd say that we all at some point have to look at that door, that exit door. We're going to get off the bus at this next stop, right?
Yeah.
And there's always that sense of uncertainty that maybe a little bit of fear as well. Did I think about this? Did I plan for that? Growing up in our upbringings there within the Marine Corps, within the UV community and RSOC or whatnot, and I won't speak for you, but for me personally, I'm a fan of checklists, right?
Yeah.
I'm having a checklist. If I'm going to go on a trip in the morning, it's funny because I still treat it the same way I would as if I was getting ready to go on a deployment. I've got my gear, I'll lay it out, I'll pack my stuff, I get it all set and squared away. I'll double check with the truck, make sure it's ready to go. So in the morning, I don't have to do anything. I can grab my coffee and I can walk out the door. And so that upbringing and that train of thought, that process, the checklist, if you will, we're all facing the door at some point where we got to get off the bus.
Mm-hmm.
It's that fear. Did I go through? Did I have the right checklist? Did I forget something on the checklist?
Yeah.
It's all these things to go down, and I think that for me personally, it was one of those. It was scary.
Yeah.
And I would venture a guess that most people who retire from the military, one branch or the other, would probably have something similar to say. It's scary.
Yeah.
You spent the vast majority of your adult life doing a thing.
Yeah.
It all stops. So what do you do now?
Right.
Did you plan accordingly?
Right. And surprisingly, right, regardless of what we say of the services, right, you have a massive support structure that at almost in many situations you can get bailed out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And all of a sudden you don't have that. But it's on checklists. I actually have a checklist, much like you. I have it. I call it camping, and it's like I have it by fishing gear, clothes, trailer, right? And it's it's the good things that we see that we got in our career time. It's PCCs, PCIs, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
And I'm a big fan of correlating military experience to finances, because in reality, I realize all these valuable lessons are pretty much the whole military thing boils down to you have a task and it needs to be done right. And unlike the rest of the world, when it's not done right, the cost is lives. And that's, I think that is a really good lesson, that if we see it across the spectrum, whether it's us as EOD, soft, irrelevant, which I've said it many times, like now my girlfriend, her dad was a nuke weapon maintainer. And I'm like, in his world, it's all checklists. And it's still the same thing. If his dudes mess it up, it's really, really bad. And it doesn't matter where you are in the military. So it's great experiences. With that, do you think that this military, which I'm not a believer that we need to rely on the military to prep us. Do you feel, though you were scared, that you were well prepared for your transition out of the military?
I would say that my transition out of the military was probably a lot more seamless than maybe I assumed or thought it was at the time. We all go through that retirement seminars and all this other stuff. For me, it was kind of a unique situation because when I retired, it was like right at the beginning of COVID.
Oh, wow.
So it was like there was nothing. I mean, it's like I remember walking into the admin office and picking up my DD-14. What was it?
Wow.
And then getting in my vehicle and leaving. So there was a lot of uncertainty within the world, right? Not just with me, but with everyone. Yeah. The whole world was in a little bit of upheaval, right? So.
Right.
Looking back, I would say that I was probably more prepared than maybe I gave myself credit for.
Okay.
Because it was such a unique situation.
Mm.
I think that, speaking only, I can't speak for the other services, but I'm sure they have, programs in place as well. I'm not positive they do. But, the Marine Corps did a good job at preparing, for me personally, preparing me for the next chapter and the uncertainty that's going to come along with that.
Right. And so, which I think is always important, right? Because we want to look at people that have done it. And there's countless things, but if you could give some words of knowledge of somebody that is leaving the military, whether it's retiring, whatever, what would you say are things that better prepared you, or even something that you wouldn't, that you would say, don't do this? Do you have anything that in that regard?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there. It's not just an individual who's retiring. Did 4 years, and they need to move on to something else, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely admirable for somebody to have actually stepped up and served his country, right? So, for an individual who's exiting the military service, I would say probably one of my number one things to do would be expect the unexpected. You're going to have all of the pieces in place. You're going to have all of the answers to the test, or so you think. You're going to walk across the street, and something's going to change. So, if you prepare yourself mentally for the unexpected, then you'll be better prepared, I should say. To handle situations if they change, they come about, because it is different now on the outside.
What surprised you about being outside? Or coming out of the military, not the closet.
Let me think here. What surprised me the most? I would say what surprised me the most is the things that we took for granted. Being in the Marine Corps, the things that we would take for granted, showing up on time for work. That's something that doesn't always happen out in the real world, if you want to call it that, right? So that was the little things that we never thought about. I didn't have to worry about whether or not I was going to be on time to work. I didn't have to worry about whether or not the rest of the guys were going to be on time to work.
Yeah.
They're going to be there. And if they're not there, there's a reason. They're on leave, or they're TAD, or there's a reason that they're not there. But it's the little things, the stuff that we always took for granted.
Yeah. I'm funny on that. And I was just talking to another guy. He got out of the Army as a warrant officer as well. And we were in this meeting preparing for this event we're about to go to. And my mentor talks forever. And then we realized one time, it's like he's talking because people literally don't get it. He has to be in so much detail because people will ask a question that to us is like, you serious? This whole conversation would have been an hour. And it's not because he has to be redundant. So it's not because he needs to wants to say it. It's because he needs to say it. Huh. So now I take for granted, I took for granted leadership giving a task or an order. It is, and I'm sure it happened plenty of times. You would walk outside and it was like, guys, do this. And that's it. Yep. There's no, can you give me more understanding? Why? Maybe wise, but it's not like I wanted to understand how to do it better, but it wasn't like, there's very little dumb questions in the military, I think. Yeah,
you always heard that old saying, there's never a dumb question.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I would say that there probably are several.
Yeah. There's a few we could put under that. Yeah.
Sure, but you're absolutely right. Walking into the boss's office and he's like, "Hey, I need you to go do this thing." Okay, got it. I understand the commander's intent. That's your intent. You want me to go from point A to point B and do a thing at point B and then come back to point A. How I get there is irrelevant. You just want it done.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And for that matter, all the how you're going to do it has already been covered in previous relationship conversations. If there's something that he doesn't like, right?
Absolutely. You had your meetings, you had your op orders are gone through. All the stuff it's all right, go do the thing.
Yeah.
Back in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And I laugh about it so much because, man, people sometimes ask, and it's like something so silly as like, where do we get food? And I'm like, just figure it out.
Yeah.
It's food. Figure it out. It's fine. You know, and it's hilarious to me. And I think that, the military does prep us, and especially I think that is the one part of like, how can I say, jobs that are more dangerous, right? Because I've learned, and I attribute it a lot to the, guys like you, Ariel, Kevin, that like we never downplayed conventional forces, right? While there's a lot of people that do. And it's like, once lives are on the line, you get much better at executing, right? You get much better of understanding and being independent, I think. So that is one thing that I've noticed that I generally value, especially for me, going from a motor T mechanic to a Neolithic and MARSOC, trying to figure it out. And you guys would just be like, go do this. And it's like, okay, right? There's a lot less walking through, having to get more information about it. So financially speaking, do you feel that the military set you up for success? Or do you feel that you needed a lot to continue working?
So I would say that yes, the military definitely, the Marine Corps specifically, set me up for success when it comes to stuff like, finances and things of that nature. But having the ability to understand that there's still growth possible. There's still, you don't walk out the door finished product. None of us are finished product. There's always something we can do better. There's something I can learn more. There's something I can, polish up a little bit, refine, hone this skill set, whatever the case might be. There's always something to do better, right? You can't ever stop.
Yeah.
And I think that specifically, that mindset is really what prepared me the best for transition. The fact that you can never be done. Yep. You're constantly improving your position. You have to constantly improve your position, whether that's financially, mentally. There's always something that you can learn, something that you can build on and make yourself better at.
Right. And I think that for the audience, I've talked a little bit about it, is that, the continuous improvements of the fighting position, whether it's spiritual, mental, physical, or financial, which is generally, I try to clump it in those four. I don't want to downplay any of the others, but my focus is finance. What were some things financially that once you left, you were wanting to improve, improved on, or maybe caught you by surprise that you had no idea about, if you're open to share about that?
So I would say it's something that I'd like to have maybe learned a little bit more initially when I first, and I haven't been retired that long, just 3 years, I guess. But I would say that the one thing that maybe I could have liked to, or something that I would have liked to know more about, is when you retire and you get another job. The bus will absolutely do that in some form or fashion, right? In the military, you had the thrift savings plan. You had that that 401k, for lack of a better term, constantly, getting a little bit put in there, getting a little bit put in there. Something I would have liked to know more about was when you retire and you take a job in the civilian sector, doing whatever it is that job may be, more information on what is the best route for saving for the future. As the TSP, you got I think 5 choices. That's really about it. A, B, C, D, fund, whatever the case might be. When you exit the military, now there's this entire spectrum of things that you can do with your money.
Yeah.
Some of it's good, some of it maybe not so good.
Right. What was that? What was something that you felt that was actually good that you took advantage of once you found out about it?
So, I would say, looking at specific, different types of IRAs, that's something that you can You can look at, if you're looking for a long-term savings bed, if you will, put the money in, knowing that you're not going to touch it for, however many years, so you're 60 or whatever. But another more of a short-term thing to look at is, different like CDs that you could put your money into for a year, for 14 months, and let's say that percentage rate might be 4%. Okay. Well, if you have the ability to take, this dollar amount, whatever dollar amount you have, and basically shutter it away in a closet, that CD, right? Knowing that you're not going to be able to touch it for 14 months or 12 months or whatever that maturity time frame might look like. But when you get it back, you're going to have more than you put in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not really a short-term achievable dollar figure. It's a near-term, I would say, more of a near-term,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this $100 or whatever the case might be. We'll stick it in this CD, and then I'm going to come back here in a year, and I might have $120.
Yeah.
That's much more than I had.
Yeah. And I recently learned about the CD ladder and how it's a tool, right? I'm not a fan of CDs now that I'm learning into about other things, but I think that, and you talking about it, it hit me that it's probably because my risk tolerance is different. Right? I know there's this guy, multimillionaire, he likes CDs. So his risk tolerance is about it. So I think that's really good because I normally would not default to speaking about IRAs and CDs, but now I feel that I need to address it because it is a tool. The fact that I don't like him doesn't mean that it's right, wrong, or different, right?
Right. Absolutely right. And you alluded to a really good point there. There are different risk tolerances between individuals. You and I sitting next to each other with the same exact amount of money in our wallet, right? You may have a different perspective, a different risk tolerance, and what you want to do with that than maybe I would, or the guy next to us.
Right.
We all have the exact same dollar amount. There's that fear of uncertainty. What do I do with this? Am I really going to get that money back? Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk a lot about risk management, risk tolerances, because it's purely it's exactly like the military, right? And we are willing to, it was calculated risk, but it's funny to look back that disarming a bomb felt more calculated than getting into retirement.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, yeah, I could do this. It's just another pressure plate. Yeah, whatever. Well, but then you look at it's funny.
You didn't go to school for 10 months to learn fire.
That's true. That's a good point.
It's that repetition, that continual training, and we're constantly as you are constantly learning something new. I used to, when I was a younger EOD, I used to refer to it as Star Trek and Stonehenge, right? You got that pendulum of ETPs. That the enemy's going to have one thing that works, and you're going to be able to defeat that. And that pendulum's going to swing to the Star Trek side, and now you're looking at DTMF stuff, and Wi-Fi capability, cell phones, and different various high-end technologically advanced ways of initiating circuitry. And then your TTPs shift to that, and now you're defeating it, and then it goes back to hacksaw blades in a road.
Yeah.
But your mind's not looking for that. You're looking for this high-end stuff over here. You're not paying attention. If you're driving down the MSR somewhere, there's two hacksaw blades with a wire coming off of it.
Yeah.
Mound.
Yeah.
So it's Star Trek and Stonehenge. It's just being able to adapt to the TTPs as they present themselves, and learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and you just gave me an idea for a reel that I'm gonna do for Instagram with a Star Trek and Stonehenge. So I think I had never thought of it that way, which is so true, that how we gotta stay informed of what's new and trendy, and what has always worked, and how there's always a time to employ each one. So with your military career, I don't think you probably we can agree that we don't have any or many regrets. But if you could look at young John and you could tell him to do something different or better, assuming that young John would listen, because odds are that much like young Jaime, he probably wouldn't listen, right? What would you tell him?
Don't be afraid to go reach for the stars. Don't ever be afraid to push yourself and try to attain that goal that somebody else may have told you can't.
Really? That surprises me. I mean, because probably because I spent majority of my time looking up to you. It's just like you had reached to the stars, But again, it's the stars are very different for many of us, and we see things very different, right? Whatever the star may be, right? I've spoken some of this with people that one of the things I wish I would have done better is marriage, right? And I always tell people is that doesn't matter. You're going to be a casualty of life in one way or another.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of our peers are, whether financial, mental, whatever. For me, was relationships. Right. I just recently went to Intrepid Spirit and they told me I have an incredibly healthy brain, but I have 2 divorces. Right. So it's like we're going to be a casualty one way or another. Right. Yeah. So it's and to the start point, it surprises me because of what I saw, but I was never in John's shoes. Right. So it's always fascinating how the world is so different while we're in the same building, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, everything's relative.
Everything's relative. So I know that you want to fish more, right? And your kids, were you able to put them to college? Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve for your kids?
Well, yeah, so far so good. Yeah, we're all doing phenomenal things. You couldn't be prouder of my kids. They amaze me on the daily basis. It's the way that they handle themselves, the way that they handle daily mundane tasks to daily amazing things. They constantly blow me out of the water. How amazing they are.
How many kids do you have?
4.
4. One.
Yes. Yeah. 1 girl and 3 boys.
1 girl and 3 boys. Who's the oldest?
The daughter. My daughter's the oldest.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Oh boy. I'm sure that those boys got checked plenty of times by her, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely right. Yeah, she didn't take any gruff from any of them.
Yeah, I have a younger sister, and not that I would never replace her because she's incredible, but I always wonder is like what it's like for be a man with an older sister. Like you can't act a fool around them, They're gonna.
No, and I'll tell you this: she loves her brothers beyond words, right? She absolutely adores them.
Yeah,
but she also doesn't take any gruff, which I think is fantastic. I love it. She's just phenomenal.
That's good. So with money and as you see the rest of your life, what are things that you never, maybe you have, but at least you will never compromise on in the future? Like you will always allocate, even if it requires a large amount of money, for something of value to you or to your family.
Yes. So let me think here. That's a really good question. I think for me personally, that changes over time.
Yeah.
You could always say that I will never not buy a certain thing.
Yeah.
I have to have that item, whatever that is. But for me, I would say that's kind of an evolving mindset. As time goes, because life changes, life evolves. Things become a priority that may never have been a priority before, or vice versa, no longer become a priority.
Yeah.
No reason to allocate anything towards that any longer. So,
yeah,
it's just one of those. It's a continually evolving thought process.
So you're adaptive to maybe right now it's fishing, but in the future maybe it won't.
Right.
So that's awesome, and I think that's a very wise way to say that, because I feel that it's important that I like that you said it, because you've already accepted that whatever's crucial now may not be in the future, and that means something that may be mundane now, that in the future you're going to be like, this is it. We're going to spend money here.
Absolutely.
Which, I mean, I'm huge on mindset now, financially. So I really value that answer. So what is something right now that you are prioritizing your finances on, that whether it's food, fishing, or something?
So, let me think here. I'm a huge fan of cooking at home. I love to cook at home. I really enjoy that. Whether I'm outside on the barbecue, putting something in the smoker, or if I'm making, chili or something, just really, I enjoy that. I get a lot of pride out of being able to create something. It's, you can go to the store and buy it, right? So
yeah,
to me, that's kind of where maybe my current prioritization is. I can go to a restaurant and drop a couple of bills on a really nice dinner, and have a phenomenal time out, or I can go spend a third of that and create the same thing.
Yeah.
And have maybe my spin, my take on something. And it's, you watch these cooking shows here, and I'm a huge fan of, you probably see the show, Triple D Diners.
Yeah.
I love that show. I could watch it for hours, right?
Yeah.
And I watch these folks who, some people have come from nothing, and they thought, I had this dream, I'm going to open up a taco truck or some type of restaurant. And you watch how these people pour their heart and soul into that meal or whatever they pay for on. I get a lot of inspiration.
That's awesome, and I'm sure your family really values that. And I'm glad you said that, because I mean, in a way, it's almost not the. I mean, we know about it amongst men that we enjoy cooking, but I've realized that, like, now, the world changes, and I feel that more men are like, I just love cooking, and I love being the one that cooks for my family, and I get a lot of value from that, right? And it's great, right? Like that moment, and I mean, case in point, that's probably why our mothers probably love it, right? That moment when they put that food in front of you, and you're just like, Mom, thanks. And you just tear up the whole thing. It's like, it's always a good feeling and rewarding with your kids, I'm sure.
Absolutely. You get a lot of satisfaction out of that. I personally do. I didn't speak for anybody else, but it's nice when you create something, you poured your heart and soul into that, whether it's this massive 5-star meal, or if it's, maybe a fancy grilled cheese sandwich that you made. Try to mix it up a little bit, but and seeing that satisfaction that you get from somebody who's enjoying it.
Yeah. And now maybe I got to make time to go to Yuma, because it sounds like the food's really good at your house.
Come on.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. But John, dude, this was great, and I hope that I'm sure I'll find more reasons to have you back on. And again, I want to say thank you very much for being open to share. Right. In a way, I was like, I don't know if I should ask John when I was getting back on LinkedIn, and I'm glad I did. I feel like I'm talking to a person that I looked up to, and it's way more valuable than I thought it was going to be, So I really do appreciate your time and coming on the podcast. And again, I'll say it, for any EOD tech, Marine EOD tech, I want you on. I want you to share, right? Like, we have his stories, and stories beyond our service, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, because I'm sure at some point people are going to forget Captain Herman, but people won't forget John Herman, So I think that's value in that. So again, thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure I'll see you soon.
I greatly appreciate the opportunity to hear and chat with you. And for me, this was a phenomenal experience. I enjoyed being able to kind of relive some of our older memories there. And I look forward to doing it again with you.
For sure. Thanks again. This podcast is not financial advice, and it only represents the opinions of those participating. Our goal is to get you to your version of financial independence. Please follow and like on every platform.